The game between the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Chicago Cubs was supposed to be just another regular season matchup. But what happened in the eighth inning on that night turned an ordinary baseball game into one of the most talked about moments of the entire 2026 MLB season. And at the center of it all was Shohei Ohtani, the man who had already rewritten every rule in baseball. What unfolded in those final innings was something that no one in that stadium, no one watching at home, and no one inside the Dodgers organization had ever expected to witness. And by the time it was over, the entire baseball world was left completely speechless. The Dodgers came into this game carrying the weight of recent offensive struggles. The lineup that had once looked absolutely unstoppable at the beginning of the season was now showing visible cracks. Manager Dave Roberts had been quietly adjusting his approach, leaning more on situational hitting and disciplined at-bats rather than waiting for the big home run to solve everything. But despite all those adjustments, the team was still searching for that one moment, that one explosive play, that could remind everyone exactly who the Los Angeles Dodgers were. And then came Shohei Ohtani. Through the first 7 innings, Ohtani had been relatively quiet by his extraordinary standards. The Cubs pitching staff had done a careful and calculated job of working around him, keeping pitches low, changing speeds relentlessly, and refusing to give him anything comfortable to attack. Cubs manager Craig Counsell had clearly prepared his pitchers specifically with Ohtani in mind. For 7 innings, that strategy appeared to be working. The Cubs had kept Ohtani contained, and the crowd inside Wrigley Field was growing louder and more confident with every inning that passed without Ohtani doing damage. But everyone inside that stadium, every player, every coach, every fan, knew that containing Shohei Ohtani for 7 innings did not mean you had stopped him. It only meant the explosion had not happened yet. The 8th inning began with the Dodgers trailing and the entire complexion of the game hanging in the balance. Roberts had already made several moves off the bench, and the pressure inside the Dodgers dugout was unmistakable. According to multiple sources inside the organization, the mood in the dugout during that inning was tense and unusually quiet. Players sat forward on the bench, eyes locked on every pitch, understanding exactly what this moment meant. When Ohtani stepped into the batter's box in the 8th inning, the entire atmosphere inside the ballpark shifted instantly. Even the Cubs fans, who had been loud and energized all night, seemed to hold their breath for just a moment. Because everyone in that stadium understood that when Shohei Ohtani steps to the plate in a critical situation, the entire game can change in a single second. The Cubs pitcher stared in for the sign. The first pitch came in, a slider low and away. Ohtani watched it carefully and let it go. Ball 1. The second pitch was a fastball up in the zone, and Ohtani fouled it sharply down the first base line. The count was 1-1. The third pitch was another breaking ball, this time missing inside. 2 balls, 1 strike. The Cubs pitcher paused, stepped off the rubber, and took a long breath. And then came the 4th pitch. According to multiple eyewitnesses present at the game, what happened next was something that nobody had anticipated. The Cubs pitcher delivered a fastball right over the middle of the plate, perhaps the one pitch you absolutely cannot throw to Shohei Ohtani when the game is on the line. And Ohtani did not miss it. The crack of the bat was heard across the entire ballpark before anyone had even fully processed what had just happened. The ball left Ohtani's bat at a devastating angle, climbing higher and higher into the night sky above Wrigley Field, before disappearing completely into the left field bleachers. A home run. A massive, game-changing, momentum-shifting home run from Shohei Ohtani in the 8th inning. The Dodgers dugout erupted. Players leaped from the bench. The roar from the Dodgers faithful inside the crowd was immediate and overwhelming. And Ohtani, who rarely shows excessive emotion after big moments, stood at home plate for just a brief second longer than usual, watching the ball land, before beginning his home run trot. But it was what happened next that stopped everyone cold. As Ohtani completed his home run trot and crossed home plate, a confrontation began to develop near the plate that escalated rapidly and dramatically. According to multiple sources with direct knowledge of the situation, home plate umpire had grown visibly frustrated with what he perceived as excessive bat behavior from Ohtani in the moments immediately following the home run. The umpire moved toward Ohtani with a directness and intensity that immediately drew the attention of both benches, both coaching staffs, and everyone watching inside the stadium. Players from the Dodgers dugout stepped to the edge of the field. The Cubs players watched from their positions with wide eyes. According to those present, nobody expected the situation to escalate as quickly as it did. The umpire reportedly charged toward Ohtani in a manner that multiple witnesses described as completely out of character for a professional MLB game. It was not a calm walk. It was not a simple warning. It was a confrontation that froze everyone in that ballpark completely still. According to multiple inside sources, the umpire was furious about what he perceived as Ohtani deliberately smashing and slamming his bat to the ground after the home run in a way that the umpire felt was directed toward the opposing team. In the umpire's view, it crossed a line that could not be ignored regardless of who the player was or how significant the moment was. The entire stadium went absolutely silent. What followed was a tense and heated exchange between Ohtani and the umpire that lasted for several minutes. Dodgers manager Dave Roberts immediately rushed from the dugout to insert himself between Ohtani and the umpire before the situation escalated any further. According to multiple sources, Roberts was speaking rapidly and urgently, trying to de-escalate what had quickly become one of the most intense on-field confrontations of the entire MLB season. The Cubs dugout watched carefully. Craig Counsell stood at the top of the steps, arms folded, observing everything without saying a word. According to eyewitnesses, several Cubs players exchanged glances with one another, clearly stunned by what they were witnessing unfold in real time. According to multiple sources inside the Dodgers organization, Ohtani remained remarkably composed during the confrontation itself, which in many ways made the umpire's intensity look even more severe by comparison. Ohtani reportedly did not raise his voice. He did not gesture aggressively. He stood his ground calmly and spoke quietly, which several Dodgers players who witnessed the exchange later described as almost unsettling given the pressure of the moment. But the umpire was not finished. After the confrontation near home plate was finally separated by Roberts and the other umpires on the field, the situation did not simply disappear. According to multiple sources, the intensity of what had just happened lingered in the air throughout the remainder of the game. Players on both sides were visibly shaken by the confrontation. The Dodgers dugout, which had been celebrating seconds earlier, was now operating with a completely different energy, a combination of anger, disbelief, and focused determination. And it was in this charged atmosphere that Ohtani's comments after the game sent an entirely new shockwave through the baseball world. When reporters gathered around Ohtani in the Dodgers clubhouse after the final out, everyone expected the standard professional response. A brief acknowledgement of the home run, a few careful words about the team's performance, and nothing more. Ohtani had always been known for his disciplined and measured approach when speaking to the media. He rarely gave anyone a reason to write a negative headline. But what Ohtani said after this game was different. According to multiple sources present in that clubhouse, Ohtani spoke with a quiet but unmistakable edge in his voice when the topic of the Cubs and the umpire situation was raised. He did not explode. He did not make personal attacks. But his words were pointed, deliberate, and completely impossible to misunderstand. Ohtani reportedly made clear that he felt the reaction from the umpire was disproportionate and unnecessary for the moment. He suggested that the standards being applied in that confrontation were not being applied consistently across all players in the league. And according to multiple sources, he specifically referenced the way the Cubs had approached pitching to him throughout the entire game, suggesting that the overall atmosphere the Cubs had created, combined with the umpire's reaction, reflected something deeper than just one play in one inning. "I just hit a home run," Ohtani reportedly said with a calm and steady expression. The reaction to that tells you a lot. Those words spread through the baseball world almost instantly. Inside the Cubs organization, the response to Ohtani's comments was cold and immediate. According to multiple sources familiar with the situation, several Cubs personnel felt that Ohtani's statements crossed a line by implying that the Cubs had somehow orchestrated or encouraged the umpire's confrontation. Cubs manager Craig Counsell was reportedly made aware of Ohtani's comments within minutes and chose not to respond publicly, a silence that many inside the game interpreted as speaking volumes on its own. Within the Dodgers clubhouse, the reaction to Ohtani's post-game words was notably different. According to multiple sources, several veteran Dodgers players felt that Ohtani had said exactly what needed to be said. There was a growing sense within the organization that Ohtani had been handled differently in key moments throughout the season, and that the confrontation with the umpire in the eighth inning had simply made that feeling impossible to ignore any longer. The bat that Ohtani smashed to the ground after his home run became a symbol overnight. It appeared on every sports broadcast, every highlight show, and every social media platform within hours of the game ending. But for those inside baseball who truly understood what had happened, the bat was not the real story. The real story was what it revealed about the tension, the pressure, and the expectations that surround Shohei Ohtani every single time he steps onto a baseball field. And if the reaction from across the baseball world made one thing perfectly clear, it was that nobody, not the Cubs, not the umpires, and not anyone else in this league, had truly figured out how to handle the phenomenon that is Shohei Ohtani.